what we're going to do is pretty much touch on what you've been taught already with the figure of the Dalek, okay? You obviously already know about the different colours that we use for cutting, engraving, and all the rest of it. The images you've been using will be... Oh, there we go. It's like watching paint dry. That's not the one I was looking for though. You can edit this bit. This is a bit where it doesn't go right. What we're going to do is just insert the image that you were working from. Okay, so that was the image you worked from as a JPEG image. Okay, so you can see with that you can import JPEGs directly as well. Okay, we'll show you a wee bit slightly further down about another way of doing JPEGs. But basically, you've used that and then vector traced it in Illustrator. You've also been taught the different ways of CS6 and CS4, the double lines and things like that. Okay, so you'll have good fun deleting all the lines you don't want, or you can come up here and use our CS4. We've got all the old equipment, which is actually better. So, and then you've taken from that. Was this one used? Wee mini in the corner. So that's what you've ended up with your vector trace. Am I right? Yeah. So from that you can see you can change the colours to any of the ones that you've used. Okay. I've adjusted a few different colours already. Okay, so you can mix and match everything on one image. Okay, so you're not just stuck to just one single burn. You can have it all different ways. There's certain things with laser cutting you just have to accept on things, especially like sort of cutting through sort of thicker materials like MDF, where you've got a really dark burn to it. Okay, we need that amount of power to be able to cut through thicker materials. So certain things you just have to accept that it's going to happen. Surface decoration, when like this, where you want to burn a line, whether it's an engraved line, kiss cut line, or if you're doing a raster engrave in between two lines, which is a cyan one, you can change the darkness of that burn or lighten it depending on what you want. Okay, we have a database set with materials here. We've got a huge amount of materials already set up. And all that materials there, we have it's set for specific things. If you wanted the surface decoration, if you want it to be darker or lighter, feel free to say so, okay? Because it's not what we want you to have. We're trying to get you to get what it is you want the piece to be. There's certain things like burning through, you're going to have to just accept. The surface decoration, we can adjust the amount of power we put through the laser, which will give you a darker or a lighter burn. Okay. Some folks say, can you change the colour of it? We can't change it because it's actually burning. Okay, so it's just either you get a dark shade of burn or a light shade of burn or anything in between. Okay. Feel free to turn around at any time and say, nah, it's not really as I want it darker, or can we do it lighter or anything like that. And what we'll do then is we actually put your name in the database and stick your power settings against your name, rather than us changing power settings all the time. Okay, so our database, we'll leave it as it is. If you want something different, we'll stick your name in and put it in. And so you can see here, I mean, we've got about 200 different materials that we can cut, or that we've used to cut, and we know the power settings on all of them because we've done samples on every one. If you come across a material we haven't used, feel free to bring it up and we'll try and do some samples of that as well. Okay, for just now we're just going to use 300 gram card, which you'll be using for your bookmark as well, I think. We'll check that later. You can see where the laser cutter's sitting just now. You can watch it, okay? You can't do yourself any harm with it. You can watch the laser cutter firing. You can't damage your eyes or anything like that. Okay? The covers on here are specially designed so that the beam can't reflect, bounce out anywhere. If while the machine's running, as soon as you get to that point, it automatically shuts off, so you can't do yourself any damage, any danger. As soon as you do lift the lid, the laser beam shuts off in a split second as well. Okay, so it's all computer controlled so that you can't do any damage to yourself. Okay, so you can see there what we're doing is we'll try and encourage you to get used to using the equipment as well. Okay, some of you will maybe use it more than others. There's quite a few students that are a wee bit wary about using it, more so because they're frightened in case they break it. Okay, it's not that easy to break. You can see there we can move the arm around, or the laser arm, wherever we want it to go. So you can use any part of this table. As you can see the size of the machine, we can cut material from 1.8 metres to 0.9 of a metre. Okay, so we've just started at the beginning. What we'll do is we'll set it running here. You obviously know what the different colours are going to do, and the timeline that we've got down the bottom here will show us which colour section it's actually going to do it in. We can change that around if we wanted to. What we normally do is I put a red line around the outside for a cut line, which we've kept right at the very end, the cut. Reason being, if you're doing any thin materials and you cut it out to begin with, if it moves on the table, then you've lost the registration. So what we do is we do all the surface sort of decoration first and do the cuts last. Okay, so as long as we make sure we've got the right material set in, because the software only knows what you put into it. It can't dictate. Don't worry about if you forget. We'll not expect you to remember every single thing to begin with. And by the end of the week you come and teach me how to do it. I'm quite good at this one. You can see there where it's speeded up now, where it's just doing the kiss cut line, so it's going really, really quickly. Different materials, it'll run faster and slower. The sort of thinner materials usually run a lot quicker. Anything that's a little bit thicker tends to sort of take a wee bit more time. We adjust the settings from 100% power right down to 5%. You don't have to worry about that, about the percentages. We adjust them. As I say, if there is anything, mirrors. Okay, so you can put an image onto the surface of the mirror. If you put on the surface, you'll see you get like a sort of a three-dimensional image looking through the glass into it. Or in this case here, you could flip a mirror over, burn off the silver in effect on the back, so that from the front it becomes a little bit sort of see-through. Okay, so you can do something like that with mirrors. You can obviously, because it's glass mirror, you can etch onto mirror glass as well. Any metals or that we can't cut that you've been told about, but if they've got a coating on them, you can burn the coating off or do an engrave line around the coating and show the bare metal behind it, but we can't cut it. So you can do surface decoration on certain materials. Same with as if you had ceramic tiles or that, you can take the glaze off the tile. With things like aluminium, when you hear of aluminium being anodised, which is a coating on it. Okay, so it's a colour that's actually onto the aluminium itself. So you can take the anodising off and leave the bare aluminium at the back of it. I mean, that piece of aluminium there has just got pretty much, that's just a sticky back coating that's on it. Okay, so you could, same again, you could do that, take the coating off it, you could maybe spray paint it, take the rest of the coating off, so you'd have it spray painted, nice neat lines as well. So, you know, things like that. You could automatically, if it's just a bare piece of aluminium, you could put a coating on it, take the coating off, and do the same sort of thing as well. Okay, so it's not. If there's anything you're not sure about, just come down and ask, because there's always different ways of doing different things. Okay, the reason we can't cut metals and glass and that is our laser cutter isn't powerful enough. We've got 250 watt tubes that are in that metal case there, and you can fire one or both. So for things like card and things like that, we're only using 150 watt tube. But for that card, we're only using 16% of that 50 watt. So it's only like 8 watts of power we're using to cut it, so it's quite low. Or we can fire both tubes at the same time and use 100 watts of power, which is what we use for cutting things like MDF. Okay, so that's, we use 100 watt of power for that, and depending on the speed as well. So you can have varying things that can happen as the speed of the machine. If you want it darker, you could slow the machine down so it burns the line for a bit longer, or you can turn the power up. So both ways kind of work. Or if you want it to burn lighter, you can speed the machine up a bit, so it's not burning over the same area for so long. So there's varying things we can do to change things. So that's why I was saying, don't you just accept what you're seeing on the surface as the final outcome. They say things like burning through, we can't do anything much about that because it takes that amount of power to burn it. But for surface decoration, we can adjust things for you. Okay? Anybody got any questions up to now?
If you increase the speed of it to get lighter burn, does that change the quality at all, or is it still the same?
You should still get the same. Okay. What tends to happen as well, although we're saying speed it up, if you've got stuff that's going into corners and it's got real sort of sharp edges, throughout the whole time that the laser cutter's running, it's speeding it, although you didn't see it very much. The arm does slow down, because as it goes into a corner it has to slow down, because it can't go in at full speed and come out again. So it'll slow down going into a corner, but at the same time as it's slowing down, it drops the power slightly as well. Reason being, if the same power level stays up there and it slows down, you'll get a deeper or a darker burn. Or if it's just an engraved line, you'll end up with sort of burning a hole in the corner. So through the whole time when it's running, the power's going up and down, the speed's going up and down, and changing, especially if it's running into corners. Okay. Larger things it tends to sort of work if it's large curves. It sort of runs at the same speed all the time. But most of the time you'll never really notice it slowing down in any way. Okay. A couple of other things we can do. As I say, we've imported that image. You could import a colour image as well. If you want to insert an image. As I say, you can import a colour image. And what we do is we do the same as if you were burning in between lines. Okay, in the software here, we go into properties and it'll bring up a screen and it allows us to enable engraving. So what it's going to do now, once we've clicked that and applied it, it'll turn the colour image into a grayscale, and it'll use these shades of grey to burn with different power settings. Black being the most power, depending on, like that material we're using. So for anything black, it'll use 16% of power. Anything white, obviously it's not going to burn anything at all. The lightest shade it'll use will be something like 3%. So it'll use every shade in between there with a different power setting. It's set as a default at 64 levels of grey, but what we do is turn it down to 16. Unlike if you're doing something in Photoshop, you want as much grayscale as possible. But with laser cutting, if you've got too many grayscales, the laser cutter has difficulty adjusting between so many different levels of grey. So the least amount of grey levels, the better your image will come out. Okay. So if we apply that with 16, we'd like to so you can see there it's turned it into just a grayscale image. You might notice as well, even the white in there, when you look at it closely, has got a slight tint to it. So you might find, even with something like that, you might get a very light burn on night points. You could take the image into Photoshop, change it around. You could do a vector trace on that as well. But the problem is, because there's so many different shades in it, you'll get quite a lot of lines with it. If you could turn it directly black and white, you would get a nice outline, and the wheels and things would highlight really well. Just check what size it is. Just now it's quite small, so we'll just scale it up a little bit. You can either rescale by typing in a number. We'll make that 75 millimeters. Just going to beef it up a little bit and drop it to there. So same again, we'll just shift the laser cutter around. So I'm going to turn that noise is just the extraction level going up. You see there, it'll do basically the exact same as it's done, it's just going to actually burn that image on. that as well. I mean, we could have put an outline round that as well. And we could have sort of cut round the outside as well. The least amount of greys you could get in it, the better the image will actually stand out. So you could take it into Photoshop and play around with the contrast ratio and things like that.